Hello, good day. This is Joseph Gillette with Global Intel Hub, and I want to create a short video with my testimony of my contact experience with a Tr3b. I never have had contact with ETs, but I know lots of people who have. I mean, many of my friends are active contactees, and I've read a lot about it, and I've had a lot of unusual experiences in my life, but never direct contact with the being, at least physically. But I have had this experience with the Tr3b. So let me just show some of these images first before I describe it. The Tr3b is it's rumored to be this craft which was reverse engineered from the 1950s, 60s, kind of like the post-World War II era when they were developing lots of stuff. And there's also something called Project Aurora that is basically, not sure if it's similar or related, but it's a triangular craft. It may not be the same thing. We don't have official information about the Tr3b, but lots of people have reported the same thing. And these drawings, like this is from some kind of patent. These photos are better because as a experiencer you can't really see the craft so well, but what I saw, so let me describe what I saw. So I saw something like this with lights. It was around 2010-ish. It might have been 2011. I don't remember really the date. In that time I was living in the remote woods of South Carolina, so I was in a very remote area. I mean, the guy who was the one of the main guys in the area said I lived at the end of the road, and people would even get lost going home. It was really remote. So this was not a place like in a city or even a suburb. It was very remote. So it was pretty late. I lived by myself in a small house, very small. I mean, tiny. It was less than 1,000 square feet, and I had 3 acres, so I just loved the outdoors, and so I lived there for a while because I was a trader. I had a Wall Street job, and you could do this remotely, so I had really good internet. So I liked the balance of nature with computers, because for Wall Street jobs and for many jobs you're an office worker sitting in front of the computer all day. So I wanted to balance that. I've always felt a good call to nature, but I can't be outside hiking while I'm working, or you can't really have computers outside. It's kind of an issue because I need a desktop computer. I can't do this thing with the phones. So anyway, it's late at night. I felt, I mean, why I said all this, when you live in the forest you hear lots of noises. You're familiar with, just like if you live in the city, you know that at a certain time you're going to hear certain noises, city waking up. Now I live in suburbia, and you hear early in the morning the symphony of lawnmowers and landscapers. And in the forest you hear planes occasionally, you hear some cars driving by, dogs barking, stuff like that, wildlife, and owls. We didn't really have any bears or anything like that, but I just felt compelled to go outside. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like anyone was speaking to me or anything like that, but I just felt compelled to go outside. And I saw some lights, but it was kind of foggy. So I walked into the forest, and I didn't bring a flashlight or anything because it was very late at night, but around the perimeter of my property I had cleared the forest. So I had a clearing near where my house was, and then there was thick forest behind that. So there's like kind of like an edge of the forest. So I walked to the edge of the forest, and I saw these lights in the sky, and I went a little further. I didn't go deep into the forest, but just kind of on the edge of where the tree line was, where there was a clearing near my house. And I looked up, and it was a triangular craft, just like in the images here. I remember 3 lights, and they were different colors. I don't remember if they were, it was kind of red and blue, and it was, I'm not sure if they were red or blue, but they were definitely red. and they might have been 3 red lights and a white light or something like that. It was some different color combination of lights. And the thing was hovering. It wasn't turning, it was just hovering. It seemed to be 20 feet above the tree line. It was very close to the trees. And this was the first thing that really freaked me out, but I was not scared. I was never scared. Then what happened, I stood there looking at it, and it seemed like I connected to its consciousness, or I felt kind of peace. I didn't feel euphoria or anything like that, like some have said. I didn't communicate any words. There weren't any words that were communicated to me, nor did I communicate anything. I just was kind of connected to it in some way. And because I had this peaceful feeling, I stood there for what seemed to be 10 or 20 minutes. It might have been shorter. It may be that my brain maybe it seemed longer than it really was. It might have been just 2-3 minutes. I don't know. But the whole time this thing was there, it at some point was kind of turning slightly. I mean, it wasn't like spinning, but it was just like turning, and then it moved a little bit. But it was basically hovering just in one place, like this triangle. And then it made no noise. That was the second thing that I realized this was not something that I was familiar with. And at the time, I didn't understand anything about Tr3b. So this happened at a time when I was deep into my finance research. I read just hundreds of books on currency trading, Wall Street, private equity, just everything. The history of finance, central banking, various financial systems, blockchain was getting popular at that time, Bitcoin. I just lightly touched on, I'm a deep researcher. I research lots of things because for my job, that's what you have to do. When you're trading and investing, you just do lots and lots and lots of research. You even pay for research. It's a big thing in my business. And so when I'm curious about something, I will do a huge deep dive into it and just learn everything. At this point in my life, I really hadn't dug too deeply into this topic. So I read maybe 2-3 books on the subject that were recommended to me, and I read some websites that post stuff about this, but I didn't know what is a Tr3b. I didn't know about a lot of things. I just knew about the big things. Like in the 90s, Alex Collier was on, I don't know if it was Art Bell, but I used to listen to Art Bell and some of those types of shows. And then there was like forums like Godlike Productions where you can see all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I was plugged into the kind of alternative intelligence, but I didn't know what was a Tr3b. I mean, I didn't have a background. And then later, I never really researched what happened. I just kind of wrote it off like an experience. But then through my research later, then I connected the dots that it probably is this Tr3b, and maybe it wasn't. I'm not the expert. I just had this experience, and so it just hovered there, and then I felt peaceful. It connected with my consciousness. That's the best way I can describe it. So I didn't communicate with it. It wasn't calling to me. There was just like this connection. I think the best way the best metaphor I have is a connection you have with your pets. Like I have lots of really loving, great pets. I have cats and dogs. And sometimes I communicate with them telepathically, but mostly you're just with them. You don't talk to your dog, mostly. Or sometimes you might, but I mean, mostly you connect with your pet. And maybe your pet will lie near you, snuggle with you, or just go for a walk or something. And you have like this connection. It's a non-verbal connection. That's the best way I can explain it. So, and again, in this time, I was not into like meditation or like I knew what some of this was. I had read some books about Eastern philosophies, but I wasn't really deep into this topic. So I didn't really have a background for what was happening. It was just at a point in my life when I was trying to grow a business, and I was alone and living in the woods. I was single. I was just focused on my business. I mean, I had no social life. I just worked 24/7 and read books and wrote books and worked. and developed algorithms and software, and I was just working and trading and learning. It's like an extended postgraduate, almost like an apprenticeship that I was doing. And so there wasn't really, I wasn't seeking out any unusual experiences. Or I mean, one night I did, just for fun, kind of go into, this was around that time. I don't remember if it was before or after, but around that time, I went walking very late at night, like when it was dark, no moon, deep in the woods with no flashlight. I had one in my pocket, but in case of emergency, but I turned it off. And that was an interesting experience. And what ended up happening there is I encountered what I think were raccoons. It was just the eyes that you see at night. And it's interesting, at night you can see animals' eyes if it's pitch black. But I wasn't, I guess what I want to say is my life was pretty normal in that time. I've always had unusual experiences attracted to me, but never like this, and never, it was things like, I don't really want to get into it, but I had a pretty normal life at that time. That's what I want to say. And I was not very well educated on these craft, and since I've learned about this, I've learned that the Tr3b is more of a corporate craft, that it's not the most advanced thing. It's been kind of not released, but given to the corporations, like that they can use it for travel, and it's used by the military, and it's kind of a old technology, let's put it that way. So it's something that we've had for a while, and this all the images. The reason I think it's a Tr3b, as I've seen other people talk about this and post videos of ones that they've seen, that's pretty much what I saw. The best ones are not the renderings, but this photo is actually what I remember. And yeah, and the red was on the outside, and then it was white on the inside. So it was the opposite of this, and it might have been yellow. I'm not sure if it was that looks kind of what it was like. But for me, the most similar images are these ones, where it's like, because that's how I experienced it. It wasn't super clear. It was late at night, but it was I don't want to say foggy. It was just late at night, and we have in South Carolina this kind of it wasn't like a fog. It wasn't a super clear night. So I didn't have I couldn't see the granular detail. It was very kind of blurred. But it was definitely, it wasn't like, it couldn't have been anything else. It could not have been a helicopter or a plane. It made no noise. It was just silent. And whoever I told this to just had no explanation for what it could be. And I knew one of my neighbors was retired Air Force, CIA, FBI type of guy. And nobody had any other explanation of what it could be. We had military base near that would do these training flights with this huge plane. And we had different bases near us, but not really. Fort Jackson is in Columbia, but that's where you do training when you join the Army, and I'm not sure about if the Navy uses Fort Jackson, but Fort Jackson is for basic training. I've never heard of anything secret or interesting going on at Fort Jackson. Maybe in Charleston there's something going on. I'm not sure, but South Carolina is not really a hot spot for this type of activity. Up in the mountains in North Carolina, Mount Mitchell and Asheville maybe. But my point is, I did not live in kind of a UFO hotspot type of area. It was just a random place in South Carolina. Beautiful, beautiful area. I love to live there. But that was my experience with the Tr3b, and it didn't seem to have any purpose. It just appeared in the forest, and I don't know why it was there. That's really an interesting question for me, and there's been some speculations with some friends and people I've talked to why it might have come, but it seemed like it came to see me. there's nothing else there. If it was randomly there, I wouldn't be able to understand that. But it didn't. It was close above the trees, but it wasn't close enough that I was afraid. Like, there was a time when there was a small aircraft that flew so close to the trees. It was one of these hobby planes, the biplanes, that it was really, I didn't like that it was flying so low, because I've seen some of these little planes crash, and it wasn't intimidating. I didn't feel like anything strange. But it was a cool experience. Overall it was cool. I remember it. And so I just wanted to document it, because I talk about it a lot, and I just wanted to just say all my thoughts about it. And there's some other thoughts that I can say privately if anyone has any questions about it. But it was cool. And so I just wanted to share that. And that's all. And there's been I haven't looked at millions, but I've heard there are just tons of people with experiences with this craft. So it's not anything that is so unique. It's just my only experience. I haven't really, that's just about the extent of what I've experienced. So I just want to share that. And thank you guys for watching. And it's important, I think, we're just honest with ourselves about what's going on. And I was listening to a podcast now, and I believe the truth only comes from within us, and your intuition is always right, even if your mind plays brain games with you. The Bible and all these different sacred texts, they're just guidebooks. Everything is a guidebook. There's no book that's going to give you any truth. All the truth comes from within. And a lot of people share their experiences, and I think it's important for us to do that. Not necessarily to share them, but just to be real about it. So it doesn't mean that you have to, I'm not saying that you just need to share. I think it can be helpful to share. I think if you have an experience, especially if it's traumatic, it can be therapeutic to share it. All of the recovery programs have a system of sharing and feedback, because it can be therapeutic. So I think it's important to share, but you do it when you're comfortable. But it's important for us to be honest with ourselves, and only by conquering ourselves we can conquer the world, which is a Sun Tzu or one of those types of expressions. So the truth is inside of us, and disclosure and technology, everything is inside us, not outside of us. And I think that's really the key to understanding ascension and taking everything to the next level. So I appreciate you watching, and would love to connect with other experiencers or discuss this privately or in other formats. So I'm open. So onwards and upwards. Thank you. Be well.